Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. Stephen King is one of my favorite authors, so I was pretty excited when I got the chance to read his kid. I really like Joe Hill's writings. I've read almost every single one of his books. Not quite, but I've read most of his books, and I am constantly and thoroughly impressed with what he can do. NOS4A2 is 692 pages, both softback and hardback, oddly enough, 259,000 words. This is possibly Joe Hill's longest book, next to The Fireman, which might be just a little bit longer. Before we get into the plot, I'd like to let you know that the first chapter of my book is available for free on YouTube if you check the link below. In NOS4A2, a young girl named Vic McQueen has the unusual ability to find anything she looks for when she rides her bike. When she grows into a rebellious teen, however, Vic rides looking for trouble, and she finds him. Charlie Manx, a vampiric madman who abducts children in his vintage, otherworldly Rolls-Royce Wraith. Charlie takes his captives to the so-called Christmas Land, where his twisted imagination comes to life and the abducted children transforms into something as evil as their captor. Will Vic be the first child to escape Charlie's grasp? And if she can, will she be able to outrun his notorious Wraith? I really like books that have high-concept plots. The concept of a book is usually the thing that drags me in. I'm not really looking for character studies most of the time. I'm not looking for historical stuff most of the time. It's usually the situation that's going to draw me in. And NOS4A2 hooked me from the second that I read the little flap. I was immediately intrigued. I started reading, I became immediately hooked, and I flew through that book. I mean, it's been a couple years since I've read this book, but I loved every second of reading through it. As weird as the plot for NOS4A2 is, it's still written fairly earnestly and fairly seriously. There are, a good couple of moments of humor throughout the book. This is Joe Hill, after all. He does have a decent sense of humor. But it is written fairly earnestly. It's a very serious story for the most part. Plot is the thing that brings me in, but it is the characters that always make me stick around in a book. And Vic McQueen, the protagonist of this book, she's one of my very favorite characters. As a matter of fact, my protagonist, Penny, in the Circus, she was drastically affected by Vic McQueen. We see Vic grow up throughout the book. The first, I think third or so, we get to see her as a teenager, and then for the rest of the book, we get to see her grow and actually be an adult and, have a kid, get married, all that kind of stuff, and see the trials and tribulations she goes through. She was just an excellent character to read. I loved following her. Vic McQueen is a very take-no-shit kind of a lady, and boy, oh boy, it shows throughout the book. She really does fight and try and be a, half-decent person throughout most of her life, even if she does fail in a lot of ways, even if she's not the greatest mother in a lot of ways. She still does go to the lengths of the world to try and save her child by the end of it. Speaking of excellent characters, Charlie Manx. My God, what a bad guy. Joe Hill and Stephen King seem to have just the most amazing talent for making bad guys. Their bad guys are always very standout. I love it when a bad guy is fully enthralled with their point of view and think that they are, actually doing the morally correct thing, as Charlie Manx thinks that he's doing in this book. He was very fun to watch, as he's transporting the kids in his car, talking with them, the way that he interacts with the kids when he's in Christmas Land. It's just such an interesting character. I loved Charlie Manx. Fucking Bing. Oh my God. Bing is one of the more interesting characters. He's actually, aside from Vic, Bing is probably the most impactful character on me because he certainly affected a little bit of how I did my writing in the Circus. He certainly affected my character, Mr. Q. Bing was fucking nuts. I love how absolutely nuts he is. He gets a bit dark, a bit cruel sometimes. Bing was a wonderful addition to this book, despite how fucked up and depraved he is. Vic's friend Maggie she was fine. I mean, she's a side character. She's a secondary character. And she was maybe my least favorite of them, but she still wasn't bad. Her ability to pull the Scrabble tiles out and kind of reveal the future and stuff was interesting. I liked that. But specifically, the toll that her ability takes on her is an interesting and quiet horror. No pun intended. But it's an interesting kind of horror. It's a creeping kind of horror. Lou is another really good character. Vic's husband, Lou, man, he really just wants to be a good guy. He really just wants to be a caring guy, and he is. He's kind of also a loser, but you know what? That's okay, because I love Lou. Lou honestly deserves better than Vic McQueen. Lou is such a good guy. He's so dedicated to his wife. He's dedicated to Vic. He's very dedicated to his kid. Lou is just a good dude. When I was first introduced to Lou, I was really kind of skeptical, especially when I realized, oh, we're going to be stuck with this guy for a while in this book, aren't we? I was a little skeptical, but man, he just grows on you. I love Lou. He's very wholesome. And of course, there's Wayne, right? Vic and Lou's kid, Wayne. He was all right. For being a kid character, he could have been way worse. Wayne wasn't written perfectly. Wayne wasn't written great, but he was written well enough. It got the job done. I felt like Vic cared for Wayne. And, Wayne obviously felt pretty scared when he was captured by Charlie and having to go through his whole ordeal and shit. So Wayne was just fine. There were, of course, plenty of other characters that did show up in the book. Vic's parents were there. There's a couple of other side characters, but we've covered the major characters, at least the ones that I really cared about. There were a few other parts of the book that I do want to remark upon, though. I really didn't expect to follow Vic's, entire life while I picked this book up. I try to go into things blind, and so I really expected the entire book to actually be from her point of view while she was a teenager. So the fact that she turns into an adult and has a kid, and it's actually mostly about her journey being a bad parent and trying to become a better parent, I didn't expect that, but man, yeah, no, it was really good. I don't know if Joe Hill has any kids, but I wonder if he did have any kids when he first put this out, and if he was maybe trying to allay some of his own fears of insecurities of parenthood through this book. I am really pissed off that Vic McQueen died at the end of the book, because I love Vic McQueen. She's, again, maybe my favorite character Joe Hill ever created, so the fact that she dies at the end of NOS4A2 really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Obviously, it doesn't piss me off enough to dislike the book, but man, I really would have liked it if Vic could have lived to have seen her victory. I think it would have been a little sweeter. However, Joe Hill doesn't pull his punch, which I appreciate. I was a little sad to see that Christmasland wasn't featured as prominently in the book as I was hoping. It's certainly there, and when we are there, my god, we get some vivid, beautiful descriptions of it. Just like the big tree, all of the houses and stuff, oh my god, it's so beautifully written. The best imagery in the entire book, hands down, comes from Christmasland. It is so unique and fun. It makes me think of that one section from Nightmare Before Christmas, except way fucking better. The whole sleigh house section, that was pretty tense, honestly. Right before we get to the interlude, right before we do the whole kind of montage of Vic growing up and all of that, man, the sleigh house, really tense, and I had no idea where it was going to be going at that point. I had no idea how Vic was going to get out of that. I really did like how each chapter there, how one chapter will flow into the next mid-sentence. One chapter will end halfway through a sentence, and the next chapter will pick up in the middle of that sentence. A lot of times gimmicks like that I think are kind of a little weird, but I thought it was done to real good effect here. There are a number of illustrations throughout the book, and they're excellent. They really help to sell the book. My favorite illustrations are the pictures of the bridge at the very beginning and the very end. One of the best touches in this book is the note on the type at the very end, right? I had, noticed in a few books beforehand that there were small notes on the typeface that is used to print the book. And of course, Joe Hill makes a note on the type himself. However, his functions more like a hidden epilogue, which is so fucking cool. Even though NOS4A2 is a particularly big book, it does not feel like it's overwritten. As a matter of fact, it moves along really quick. I don't know if I should say breakneck pace. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but it does move along very quickly. You never get bored while you're reading NOS4A2 because you're always moving on to the next thing. There are a lot of things that happens in this book, and they just come at you fairly rapid fire. The prose is neither too minimalist, nor is it too intrusive. It's not too flowery and in your face. The prose is pretty enough when it needs to be. It's ugly when it needs to be. It's functional when it needs to be. I really struggle between Horns and NOS4A2. I really don't know which one is better. Horns is the only book that I've ever read twice in a row. I would have read NOS4A2 twice in a row. The only reason I didn't is because it's almost 700 pages long. To rate NOS4A2, I have to give it an A-. It would be criminal to give this book anything less than an A-. NOS4A2 was just excellent. From cover to cover, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. This book is easily in my top 50 books that I've ever read. I loved NOS4A2. Am I going to reread this book? Hell yes. I really want to reread this book at least one more time before I die. I'm going to reread this book. I might even pick it up here pretty soon because I have wanted to reread this book for a while, and the only reason I haven't is just because I've been busy reading other books that I've not read yet. I just prioritize new books over rereads for the most part. This one will be one of the next books that I get around to rereading, though. NOS4A2 had a gigantic impact on me, specifically when I was writing The Circus, an American fantasy. Surprise, I'm gonna sell you shit. Here I have The Circus, an American fantasy. After a drug-fueled self-analysis, Penny Robinson finds herself trapped in an enormous otherworldly circus where capitalism is king, crime runs rampant, and souls are currency. Portraits and Bloodlines is 23 short stories in the horror, slipstream, science fiction, and other genres. A little bit of everything for everyone in Portraits and Bloodlines. I'm going to be at the Artists Assemble Horror Fest in Phoenix, Arizona from October 11th to the 13th. If you're curious about all of the movies that I have behind me, head over to my wife's channel. Gabriella is documenting our Blu-ray and DVD collection process. Thanks for sticking around, I appreciate that. What's your favorite Joe Hill book? I hope it's NOS4A2 or Horns, but if it's not, tell me which one it is. I love talking about books, so let me know what you're reading. Okay, bye!